Ant. You're looking at something so small that hundreds of them could fit on your fingernail, yet each one holds the blueprint for an entire colony. An ant egg measures barely 0.5 millimeter long. The queen can lay thousands of them every day, while workers constantly move the eggs around the nest. They're not organizing them. They're controlling temperature and humidity. Even a small environmental change can stop development completely. The egg itself doesn't choose its future. Nutrition determines whether it becomes a worker, a soldier, or even the next queen. One queen can produce millions of descendants during her lifetime, all starting from eggs smaller than a grain of sand. But these tiny eggs are nothing compared to what happens when survival depends entirely on luck. Grey grouper fish. Imagine having 1 million children and abandoning every single one within seconds. That's exactly how the grey grouper reproduces. During spawning season, hundreds of groupers gather in open water and release enormous clouds of eggs and sperm at the same time. Each transparent egg is less than 1 millimeter wide and immediately drifts away with the ocean currents. There are no nests, no parents, no protection. Out of more than 1 million eggs, only a tiny fraction survive long enough to become adults. The ocean simply eliminates the rest. It's one of the most wasteful reproductive strategies in nature, until you meet an animal that chooses quality over quantity. Mosquito. You probably have mosquito eggs closer than you think. Not in a swamp, not in a lake, maybe in the bucket sitting outside your own house. A female mosquito lays tiny eggs directly on still water, sometimes arranging them into floating rafts containing dozens or even hundreds of eggs. But before she can produce them, she must first drink blood. That meal provides the proteins needed to develop the next generation. Within as little as 24 hours, those eggs hatch into larvae. One unnoticed puddle can produce thousands of mosquitoes in just a few weeks. But the next eggs solve a completely different problem, not by floating, but by building their own protective world. Frog. At first glance, frog eggs look like black dots trapped inside clear jelly, but that jelly is actually a biological survival machine. As soon as the eggs touch water, the transparent coating expands dramatically, surrounding each embryo with a thick protective cushion. It keeps the eggs moist, absorbs impacts, slows bacterial growth, and even helps trap warmth from the sun so the embryos develop faster. Many frogs lay hundreds, or even thousands of eggs at once, because predators will eat most of them long before they hatch. Yet even this remarkable design is simple compared to the next egg. Because the next animal builds something so perfectly engineered, scientists still study its microscopic structure today. Butterfly. At this scale, you're no longer looking at an egg. You're looking at architecture. A butterfly egg is smaller than a pinhead, yet under a microscope, its surface is covered with perfectly symmetrical ridges, tiny pores, and intricate patterns unlike anything else in nature. Every species builds a different design, almost like a fingerprint. But the shell isn't just beautiful. Those microscopic openings allow oxygen to enter while preventing the embryo from drying out. Before laying an egg, the female lands on a leaf and tastes it with sensors on her feet. If the plant isn't exactly right, she simply flies away. Because once the caterpillar hatches, its first meal must already be waiting, and the next parent takes precision to an entirely different level. Hummingbird. The smallest bird on Earth lays eggs barely larger than a jelly bean, yet inside each one is a chick whose heart will eventually beat over 1,200 times every minute. A hummingbird egg weighs less than 0.5 gram and rests inside a nest woven from soft plant fibers and spider silk. That silk isn't decoration. It's elastic, allowing the nest to stretch as the chicks grow. The mother raises them completely alone, returning every few minutes with tiny meals while keeping the eggs at a remarkably stable temperature. For something so fragile, almost every detail has been engineered for survival, but the next animal protects its eggs by doing almost nothing at all. Lizard. Most reptile parents disappear the moment the eggs are laid. Lizards are no exception. Instead of building nests or guarding their young, many species bury soft, leathery eggs beneath warm soil and simply walk away forever. The sun becomes the incubator, and the earth becomes the nursery. But some lizards have abandoned an even more fundamental rule of reproduction. Certain species can produce fertile eggs without ever mating. It's called parthenogenesis, where embryos develop from unfertilized eggs, creating offspring that are nearly identical clones of their mother. No father, no fertilization, just life, continuing on its own. Yet even that seems ordinary compared to the next animal, because mammals aren't supposed to lay eggs. Platypus If you had shown this animal to scientists 200 years ago, many would have called it a hoax. It's a mammal, with a duck's bill, a beaver's tail, venomous spurs, and it lays eggs. The platypus produces just 1 to 3 soft, leathery eggs, curling its entire body around them inside a hidden burrow for about 10 days. After they hatch, the babies don't drink milk from nipples because the mother doesn't have any. Instead, milk slowly seeps through specialized patches of skin for the young to lick away. It's one of evolution's strangest combinations, but now we're leaving rivers behind, because the next mother returns from thousands of kilometers away to lay her eggs on the exact beach where her own life began. Sea turtle. This mother is about to complete one of the greatest journeys in the animal kingdom. She hasn't seen this beach in decades, yet she returns to the exact stretch of sand where she hatched. Sea turtles use Earth's magnetic field like a biological GPS, navigating thousands of kilometers across open oceans with astonishing accuracy. Once ashore, the female digs a deep nest and lays around 100 soft, ping-pong ball-sized eggs before disappearing forever. She'll never meet her babies. Even more incredible, the temperature of the sand decides their future. Warmer nests produce mostly females, cooler nests produce mostly males. But the next eggs don't rely on temperature, they rely on color. American robin. That brilliant blue isn't there to impress humans. It's a message. American robin eggs get their iconic color from a pigment called biliverdin, the same compound produced when red blood cells break down. But researchers believe the color does something even more important. Bright blue eggs may signal that the mother is healthy, encouraging the father to bring more food while she incubates. In other words, the eggs are communicating before the chicks even exist. Sometimes survival begins with a color instead of a shell, but the next bird hides its eggs in a completely different way. Every single one is unique. Quail. No two of these eggs are exactly alike. Each one is painted with a completely different pattern. Quail eggs are covered with dark speckles that seem random, but those markings serve an important purpose. They break up the egg's outline, making it almost invisible among dried grass, stones, and fallen leaves. The camouflage is so effective that predators can walk within centimeters without noticing them. A female may lay 1 egg every day until her clutch is complete, creating an entire collection where every shell has its own distinctive design. Nature didn't decorate these eggs. It disguised them. But the next egg is one you've probably eaten, without realizing how incredible it really is. Chicken. You might have eaten one this morning, but inside a hen, building an egg is one of biology's most remarkable manufacturing processes. Everything begins with a tiny yolk. As it slowly travels through the reproductive tract, layers are added one after another. First the egg white, then protective membranes, and finally a hard calcium shell containing thousands of microscopic pores. The entire process takes about 26 hours. Only after 1 egg is finished does the next one begin. Something so ordinary is actually one of evolution's most sophisticated production lines, but the next mother sacrifices almost an entire month of her own life, just to protect a single nest. Turkey. Most birds begin incubating their eggs as soon as they're laid. Wild turkeys do the exact opposite. A female lays just 1 egg each day, quietly building her clutch over nearly 2 weeks. During that time, she doesn't start incubation at all. Every egg simply waits. Only after the final egg is laid does she settle onto the nest, ensuring every chick develops at the same pace and hatches within hours of one another. It's a remarkable strategy. If one chick hatched days earlier, it would quickly leave the nest, forcing the others to fend for themselves before they were ready. Sometimes, waiting is the safest survival strategy, but the next mother protects her eggs in a way almost no reptile ever does. Crocodile. Those jaws can crush bone with thousands of pounds of force, yet moments after her babies hatch, she uses the very same jaws to carry them without leaving a single scratch. Unlike most reptiles, crocodile mothers stay with their nest for nearly 3 months, fiercely guarding it from predators. As the embryos finish developing, the hatchlings begin calling from inside their eggs. Hearing those tiny sounds, the mother carefully uncovers the nest and gently rolls the eggs between her teeth, helping the babies break free. The deadliest bite in the river becomes one of the gentlest tools in nature, but the next egg pushes the limits of anatomy itself. Kiwi. This bird carries an egg that seems almost impossible. Just before laying, the egg can occupy nearly 20% of the female's entire body weight, the largest egg relative to body size of any living bird. For days, there's barely enough room left inside her body for food. She eats less, moves more slowly, and invests an enormous amount of energy into producing a single offspring. Why make one giant egg instead of several smaller ones? Because the chick develops so completely inside the shell that it hatches unusually mature, covered in feathers and ready to explore within days. It's an enormous investment, but the next reptile invests almost nothing at all. Pine snake. These eggs look unhealthy, soft, wrinkled, even slightly deflated, but that's exactly how they're supposed to look. Pine snake eggs have flexible, leathery shells instead of the hard shells found in birds. That flexibility allows moisture and oxygen to move through the shell while the embryo grows underground. After laying up to 24 eggs inside a deep burrow, the mother leaves forever. No guarding, no feeding, no second chance. Everything depends on the warmth stored in the surrounding soil. But the next bird takes parenting to an incredible extreme. EMU. The female lays the eggs, then she disappears. Everything that happens next belongs to the father. An emu's dark emerald green eggs are among the most striking in the bird world, each weighing around 700 grams. Once the clutch is complete, the male begins one of nature's greatest acts of endurance. For nearly 8 weeks, he rarely eats, drinks, or leaves the nest. He survives almost entirely on stored body fat, losing up to a third of his weight while protecting the developing chicks. By the time the eggs hatch, he's barely recognizable. But even these enormous eggs are overshadowed by one giant that dominates every living bird on Earth. Ostrich. This isn't just the biggest bird egg alive, it's a biological fortress. An ostrich egg weighs up to 1.5 kilograms and is protected by a shell nearly 2 millimeters thick, strong enough to support the weight of an adult under the right conditions without cracking. Inside is enough nutrition to develop a chick already capable of running just days after hatching. Yet here's the surprising part. Despite laying the largest egg of any living animal, the ostrich actually produces one of the smallest eggs relative to its own body size. Even giants have limits, but every egg you've seen so far belongs to animals that are still alive. The next ones belong to creatures the world lost thousands, and even millions, of years ago. MOA, long before humans built cities, New Zealand was home to birds unlike anything alive today. The moa couldn't fly. It didn't need to. With no large land predators, these giant birds grew to over 3 meters tall, laying eggs nearly 3 times larger than an ostrich's. Even after the species disappeared around 600 years ago, fragments of their eggs remained buried beneath the soil, preserving a biological time capsule. Scientists have recovered ancient DNA from those shells, allowing them to study an animal no one will ever see alive again. The bird vanished, but its eggs continued telling its story. Yet the next egg belonged to something even larger. Elephant bird. If you cracked this egg open, it could have fed an entire family. The elephant bird of Madagascar laid the largest bird eggs ever discovered. Each one reached over 30 centimeters long and held nearly 9 liters of volume, roughly the same as 200 chicken eggs. For centuries, sailors told stories about enormous birds capable of carrying elephants through the sky. Those legends sounded impossible until explorers found the eggs. Reality had already created something almost as unbelievable. But birds weren't the only giants producing enormous eggs. Millions of years earlier, dinosaurs were doing it first. Beibeilong. When paleontologists first uncovered these gigantic fossil eggs, they had no idea what animal laid them. Each egg stretched nearly 1/2 meter long, arranged in enormous circular nests, unlike anything scientists had seen before. For decades, the eggs remained a mystery. Only after new fossil discoveries did researchers identify the parent, a giant feathered dinosaur called Beibeilong. Even more surprising, the eggs were discovered long before the animal itself. Sometimes evolution leaves behind the children, long before it reveals the parents. But these weren't even the most familiar dinosaur eggs. Theropod dinosaur. For over a century, scientists imagined dinosaurs laying eggs like oversized reptiles. Then the fossils changed everything. Several theropod dinosaurs have been discovered sitting directly on top of their nests, arms spread across the eggs in a posture almost identical to modern birds. Instead of burying their eggs and walking away, many likely incubated them using body heat. That single discovery completely changed our understanding of dinosaur parenting. Birds didn't simply evolve from dinosaurs. In many ways, they never stopped behaving like them. But one modern reptile developed an incubation strategy unlike anything fossils have revealed. Giant monitor lizard. Most animals build nests. This one steals an entire civilization. The giant monitor lizard buries its eggs inside active termite mounds. At first, it seems impossible. Why would termites allow a predator into their home? The answer is simple. They don't have a choice. The mound naturally maintains a warm, stable temperature and humidity almost perfectly suited for incubation. While the termites unknowingly maintain the nest, the embryos develop safely inside one of nature's most advanced climate control systems. The lizard never built an incubator. It borrowed one, but no real egg compares to the one science can only imagine. Godzilla. Godzilla has never existed, but if evolution somehow produced a reptile over 100 meters tall, its egg would have to obey the same biological laws as every animal you've seen today. Scaling from the largest living reptiles, scientists estimate a creature that size would require an egg several meters long, with a shell weighing tens of thousands of kilograms. The embryo would need enormous energy reserves, powerful gas exchange, and a shell strong enough to support its own weight without crushing the developing young. In other words, even monsters can't escape biology. Every egg in this video, from an ant smaller than a grain of sand to a hypothetical giant the size of a building, follows the same fundamental purpose: protect life until it's ready to change the world.